just believe in the power of healing and restoration. And I know that if we can just come together and speak about the hard things, we can finally begin to heal. So, this is where we heal.
Welcome to another episode of This Is Where We Heal. Today, I have one of my favorite guests from my last podcast. This is Adam Roa. Adam Roa is known for being a spoken word poet, a motivational speaker. He travels the world speaking and uplifting people, talking about healing and vulnerability, obviously, two of the things that I love to talk about the most. And he's also just been one of my favorite people to interview in the past. And so I've been trying for a while now to get him on this show. And hopefully soon we'll get him in person again because he's just got such a beautiful presence to him. But Adam obviously is known for you had a spoken word called "You Are Who You've Been Looking For." Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and that one obviously just went insane. Like everyone in the world has probably heard that. And I actually found you through Sovereignty, which we showed on the last podcast that you came on with me and made me cry all over again. But what I love about you, Adam, is that you're not afraid to talk about vulnerability and you're not afraid to be vulnerable. And I love that you are making it known in the world because I think for men, it's very healing. It's very healing to see someone that is a solid, grounded man who is successful, who is entrepreneurial, but is also creative and open and real and raw and authentic and vulnerable. And I just think it's really beautiful. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. And I don't know. It's funny because I don't know if it's healing for men. I know that it's great reference point for men, but I find it to be very healing for women. That the
Oh,
amount of women that go, it's super healing to just know that there are men willing to be vulnerable and doing, because so many women have had such awful experiences with men that many of them have sort of given up hope. It seems like on the just male gender in uh, total. But yeah, it's very kind words, and I appreciate it.
oh my gosh, that's so true, though. I think I told you this before, and I'll just say it again since we're on here. But when I met you, and this is it's such a weird thing because I'd never really known much about like energy or presence or really even thought about those things before, until I met you because you were one of the first men I've ever met where there was just like this immediate feeling of safety and warmth. And I really don't even know how to describe it in the right words, but it was so evident to me that you were just in a different space internally than almost every man that I had ever met, you know? Um, and so it's just a testament to anyone listening of all the work that you've done on yourself and the healing that you've done for yourself as you navigate your journey through the world. And um, so it is possible. There are men out there who have done the work and who are safe and who feel safe. And I love that about you. So
Oh, thank you.
um, what I want to know, what was your inspiration for you are who you are looking for?
You Are Who You've Been Looking For was inspired because I mean, this is about 10 years ago now, but I went to an event and there were all of these speakers. Everyone got 5 minutes over the course of an hour. So 12 speakers, 5 minutes each. And the last person to go was a spoken word poet. And the moment that this gentleman shared a poem, I had a bolt of lightning and thought, I can do that. I know I can do that. And I went home and I wrote a poem. And the next day, I was hanging out with my friends, a group of guys, and I think we were watching a college football game or something. And it was a commercial, and I said, "Hey guys, can I read you a poem?" And, now everyone gets really excited when I say that, but back then it was very awkward. And these guys went, "Okay, sure."
Sure.
We'll pause the football game, the very manly sports, and listen to a poem from you. And so um, I did this poem. It's called Our Thoughts. I have a spoken word poetry album on Spotify called Permission, and it's the first track. And I actually wrote that poem and shared it. And they said, "Oh, that's good, man. Yeah, really great." And then one of them, I give him credit all the time. His name is Chris Pitcher, and he walked out of the room. But that moment, these moments of just divine intervention where he pops his head back around the corner. I think he was going to the bathroom and he stopped and he came back and he popped his head around the corner and he said, your next poem should be called You Are Who You've Been Looking For. And then he walked away to the bathroom. And I didn't have any ideas for more poems. I just had started 2 days earlier. So I went home and I wrote in my journal, You Are Who You've Been Looking For. And that's the first line of the poem. And I just wrote it. It took me 2 days, 48 hours or so. And it was years later that a performance of that poem ultimately went viral. But it was the second performance piece of poetry that I ever wrote. And it was because I just said yes. I said yes twice. This is the part that's important, I think, for people to understand. I got the hit of inspiration and I said yes. And I went home and I started writing. And then I got the desire to share it, which required courage. And I said yes. And I shared it. And then I got another gift given to me when my friend Chris said, Your next piece should be this. I said yes. And I went home and I wrote it. And I believe that the universe is leaving us clues all the time. We are on a giant scavenger hunt through life. And so uh, saying yes is a big key to seeing our dreams manifest.
Oh my gosh, that's so good and so true. I get inspired a lot. I'm obviously a creative person too, but and I write and I do all these things. Very rarely though do I actually like say yes to what comes next on that. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, I don't even know. But I want to know how. Obviously, you've been a creative probably your whole life, right? Before poems, before spoken word, where you were a musician, right?
Well, it's funny. I went through this thing where I was very creative as a kid, and I loved to act in plays in school, and I played Dungeons and Dragons and all of that kind of stuff. I had a very vivid imagination, but I went through a period of time which was basically, mm, I don't know, let's just call it teenage years.
Yeah.
The teenage years where I thought to myself, I'm not creative,
Oh.
and I need to be successful in a different way. And I leaned into academics and thought I needed to be a businessman and that sort of thing. And I found my way back to creativity after hitting my first mountaintop when I was 18. I hit this mountaintop of, I had a scholarship to college and varsity in multiple sports, and I was president of this club and that, and I won homecoming king. And after winning homecoming king, that was the moment where I thought it all turns around. Every movie I saw growing up said the homecoming king has it made. So I should be very happy now. But I woke up the next morning and I wasn't, and nothing had
Mm,
changed. Nothing was different. I was still insecure and angsty and uncertain. And so that moment for me was a wake up call where I thought, well, what if everything they've sold me up until now is a lie? And I
oof.
go to college and I get the career job and the house with the white picket fence and the labradoodle and the 2.5 kids and the Stepford wife and the whole thing. What would happen if I'm not happy and I've wasted my whole life? I'm not 50 years old and I'm realizing that. And so I started to ask the question, what was the last thing I could remember doing that made me happy?
Mm,
And I remembered acting as a kid, and I started taking acting classes again in college, and that led me back into creativity, but I still didn't think of myself as creative. I thought of myself as an actor. And then
mm,
I started writing short films and things, and I thought of myself as a writer. But it wasn't until later in life that I actually saw it under an umbrella of I am creative. I am a creative. I am a creator. And that changed everything because to me, the process of creativity is a process of expansion of consciousness. And it is
mhm.
a way in which we can grow and learn about ourselves so deeply and we can heal so immensely all of that came as I opened up my aperture and I thought, I'm not just an actor or a writer, I am a creative. And that was a
Mhm.
big turning point as well.
Ooh, that is so good, so good. Do you feel like that point after you said you woke up the next day and you still just felt like, "Hmm." Do you feel like that was, like, the first point of your healing journey for you? Where you were like, "Wait, something has to change inside of me."
Yeah, I think that that was uh, it is one of it's probably the first major wake up call
Mhm.
for me that I can remember. And I feel very grateful because as a coach, I've always attracted people who are at that place because we often can only coach and teach from where we've been and the path that
Yeah.
we've walked. Otherwise, we're just regurgitating information instead of experiential wisdom. And so for
Mhm.
me, uh, I hit that mountaintop of success as silly as it might seem to some people, as a high school kid coming in at 13 years old and being 73 pounds and 5 feet tall and just super late to puberty, I didn't have a real mountaintop except for being, like, successful in high school, being the most
Yeah.
popular kid and being the one that gets straight A's and honor society and all of these things, and so, um to hit a mountaintop that you think will change the circumstances of your life, I believe that on some level, we all grow up holding on to that idea. I think that whether it's media, movies, our parents, or wishful thinking, we grow up with the belief that something will make us happy.
Mhm.
Something will change our life dramatically.
Oof.
And for a lot of people, that's money. They go,
Yeah.
"If I make enough money, I'll be happy."
Yep.
Um, and ultimately, I think that I was very blessed to hit a mountaintop where literally I had checked every box that I had at the time. There wasn't another one to check. And to realize that I wasn't happy gave me that wake up call that as a coach, I've attracted people who don't hit that point until they're in their mid 40s and have the money and the the family and the accolades. And so I see it a lot, and I think that the earlier that someone can realize that no amount of external accomplishment will move the needle significantly, that's a huge awakening moment and very, very
Mhm.
important. And at the same time, I'm a big believer in setting goals, actually accomplishing things that you're proud of
Mhm.
as part of our self-worth journey. But
Yeah.
it is not gonna ultimately be the thing that, changes your whole life.
So then what is happiness and how do we achieve happiness outside of external things?
Well, that's really interesting because I don't necessarily I think it's a definitional thing, first of all, when we think about what is happiness. For me, the word that is so huge in my life is joy.
Mm.
Joy is a big part of, my life right now, and the journey to joy has been a long one, and it's something that I've been working really hard with my team to kind of break down and analyze and look at what are the steps? How do we arrive at joy, a life of joy? Because I
Mhm.
think that for me, happiness, we have moments where we're happy and we have moments that
Yeah.
we're sad,
Yeah.
but you can be joyful while crying, right? Like, it can be so
Yes.
painful, but you're still just so in a state of joy for the human experience that you're having.
Mhm.
And to me, that's kind of different than happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness is a fleeting emotion, while to me, joy is sort of a state of being.
Yeah.
And so I've been in this journey to joy, this pursuit of joy, and I think there's a number of elements. I mean, I can outline them for you if you think that's important, but ultimately I wanted to create that differentiation about my pursuits.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think joy can be cultivated too within us. I think sometimes it's even just getting really, really present in the moment that you're in and looking for it, looking for the things that you're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful for this moment. I'm so grateful for this person that's next to me. And I'm so grateful for, you know, the fact that I'm here, you know, and I feel like for me, and you can then go into to it for yourself, is that I feel the most joy when I'm really intentional about being grateful. Like when I'm really intentional about looking for the specific things in my life that maybe I don't even feel worthy of, but I get to experience them anyway, right?
Yeah, I think that joy is from within.
Yeah.
It's a deeper felt sense that involves things like purpose, right? If you're
Yeah.
not living a purposeful life, I find it very difficult to live a life of joy. I think that everyone's purpose also involves being of service. I don't know
Yeah.
anyone whose purpose is entirely about themselves. So, um, living a life of purpose and service to me goes hand in hand with living a life of joy. And in order to do that, you need to have direction.
Yeah.
To feel like you're directionless is a space where it can be very hard to find joy in your life as well. It's just this very deep, um, almost spiritual feeling to me. While
Yes.
happiness is sort of the emotional response to an external stimulus,
Yeah.
right? You have a great experience and you feel happy about that thing, while joy is that state of being where you look at your life and the life that you are living and you feel immense appreciation and gratitude, these things that emerge from the joy that you feel when you point that joy at your life in different areas.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And going to the reverse of that, I want to talk a little bit about like the heartbreak that we all experience in life. And I want to know how heartbreak in your own personal life has changed your perspective on love and relationships and life in general.
Wow, I don't know that there's been a bigger teacher in my life than heartbreak. It's
Yeah.
it's been, such a huge one. I know we talked about this on the last time that we got together for the podcast. Um, so you know what's interesting? I'm gonna have my first book of poetry come out, next year, and
Oh.
and the book is a collection of poems and my actual journal entries that I never thought anyone would read. And to write it, I flew to this remote part of Spain, and I was in basically isolation for 2 months, and
Except for the cat.
yes, except for, Rumpelfluffskin is what I named the cat. Rumpelfluffskin showed up at my door every day, and,
Uh,
but the I flew with a box of journals that I'd kept for 15 years, and I was reading through it chronologically, and this very interesting thing started to happen where I saw
mm,
patterns across years and years of my life where this relationship, I'm journaling about the same stuff that I was journaling about in this relationship that was 5 years
oh.
earlier, and I'm still struggling in the breakup process with this and this, which I still struggled with 3 years later after another breakup, and I think that this was such a huge initiation for me into seeing not just the curriculum of heartbreak,
Mhm.
but the cycles and spirals that I found myself in without even realizing it, because in many ways I hadn't yet learned the lessons. And I think that life will give us the same curriculum until we pass the test. And
Yes.
so, yeah, that was very transformative for me to finally get to a point where I went, okay, is 15 years enough? is that enough time of repeating this curriculum actually change something?
Yeah.
And I believe that it's in our moments of deepest hurt. It's in our moments where all seems lost. It's in our moments where we feel completely broken that we choose who we become next. We
Yeah.
choose, okay, I broke into a million pieces. Which ones am I choosing to use as the foundational building blocks of the new me?
Mhm.
And it's easy for people to say, "Oh, I create my reality. I'm the creator of my reality." But then when shit hits the fan, suddenly they're back into, why is this happening to me? I didn't have any choice in this, right? And well, what happened to the belief that you create your reality? Do you
Yeah.
believe that? Or the people who say that the universe is working for me, and that's a belief. And then again, when it gets hard, do you come back to the belief that the universe is working for you, or is that the moment where you fall into, this is happening to me, and I go into victimhood? And
Mhm.
so I think that heartbreak is the test, but also it's the, hey, pick and choose very carefully the belief systems that you want moving forward.
Oof.
And I think it's a
Oof.
huge opportunity.
Amen. I honestly, so before, well, when I at the time I met you, I still hadn't healed those inner wounds in me that kept showing up, right? After every disappointment, after every hurt, after every failed situation, I kept getting crushed, which I think we talked about at that time, because the foundation of who I believed I wasn't there yet. And over the last, couple of years now, gosh, has it really been that long? Anyway, over the last couple of years, I had like this moment where I realized, "Oh my gosh, like this doesn't change until I do." Like the way that I feel about myself and who I foundational believe that I am is what's going to keep me going. It's going to be the thing that carries me through, is that no matter how heartbroken I am, no matter whether a person stays or they go or they choose me or they don't, believing that, you know what, I'm still worthy. I'm still valuable. I'm still important, and things are still working out for my good even if they're not how I wanted them to look. That shifted my entire, it changed my life finally getting to that place and healing those wounds, because I now don't, I see people differently and I see relationships differently. I see them more as a gift than like something that's mine to hold on to. And I think before I think I even said this in our interview, that I always held on to people so tightly and it was hard for me to let go. And now it's kind of like I can really want someone in my life, but I do genuinely now know, but I don't need them. So even if they go, I can lovingly let them go because I know that there was a lesson in it. It was for the time that it was meant to be, and that I'm still okay with or without, right? Um, what were the patterns that you picked up on for yourself that you had to heal from so you stopped repeating those cycles?
Um, Mainly that I was just a whiny little baby. Would be the biggest one. I was I was such, I was constantly in I was constantly in struggle.
Yeah.
I was constantly, if I was single, I was really searching for love, and if I was in relationship, I was struggling to make it work when it
Yeah.
was clear, especially in hindsight, that it wasn't working.
Right.
And I when I was in the breakup process, I was back and forth constantly in self criticism about if I screwed it up, did I do something
Mhm.
wrong, blaming myself, wondering if I made the wrong decision, and just there was a constant state of um, seeking to be somewhere I was not,
Mhm.
seeking to be in relationship or out of relationship or whatever. And I think the biggest piece for me that came through that process also was beautifully amplified because I was in such isolation when I was in Spain, um, where a lot of days I didn't see other human beings, and
Wow.
I cooked my own meals, and I went on walks and saw sheep, and just was sit out on my balcony and just look out at the ocean and this tree that was there, and I would simply be. And I got to this place where I realized I think I'm happy, but I think
Mhm.
I'm happy, but it's not the type of happy that I'd previously associated with happy. It's what is this feeling? And I realized it was a feeling of contentment. It
Mhm.
wasn't this peak experience, and my life, is, as we were talking about before we hit record, my life is so crazy because I jump from one country to the next at the coolest events and retreats and speaking and performing and meeting the most incredible humans. And so my life is often filled with these peak experiences. And I find so much happiness in them. I love being around my friends and getting to see new places and experiences. I love speaking on stage. And at the same time, that's not joy.
Yeah.
That's not contentment.
Yeah.
That is happiness in a moment because of an external
Yeah.
circumstance. And by going to Spain, I removed everything. I had 3 times that I had any kind of social outings at all, 3
Uh-huh.
times in 2 months. And, one of them was a sweat lodge, so I'm not even sure if that really counts. But you have I had this experience of going, I've removed all my friends, I've removed being social, I've removed the events, I've removed the spotlight, I've removed everything that I've been doing, and I feel great. I feel so content sitting out here and talking to this tree and just having space to be here. And to me, that was a huge turning point because what it taught me was that I can have that
Yeah.
without all the things I thought I needed.
Oof.
And from there, I now am able to enter into relationship and back into the world knowing it all needs to be additive. Because anytime I find myself just in victimhood or lamenting life or whatever, I know that I've added things that I've chosen to add that are contributing to that. It's
Yeah.
not I'm not a victim in any way because when I remove it all, I'm actually good. Yeah, so
Amen.
that was a really big turning point for me, and it changed the way that I looked at relationship. It changed the way that I looked at what I say yes to, um, and it really allowed me to bring joy into my life.
Yeah, that's so good. I think I call it my season of isolation, um, where I just genuinely stopped. I stopped dating for a really long time and stopped seeking, companionship for a really long time because I just realized like the same thing, like the same cycles just kept coming up. And I once I fought through the initial feeling of loneliness and feeling like I really wanted or needed someone around to make me feel better about myself, once I finally, like, got through that, I did, I felt like I was covered with so much peace and calm and just like, "I'm really good with my life right now." Like, I'm really good with who I am right now, I kinda like myself. And I noticed too that the things that I wanted changed when it came to the idea of relationship. Um I no longer was, like, seeking affirmations or seeking someone to fulfill me. It was kind of like and still, I'm kind of just in this new space of, like, yeah, when the right person comes, they'll come, and I'm I'll still have my own life, I'll still be my own person, and they'll be themselves, and that's what I want now. I and it's hard to explain, but do you feel like, the way that you view relationships now after having that season has changed too? Like, or the things that you want and believe you need?
Yeah, so I went from believing that what I wanted was someone to build an empire with, you
Uh,
know,
yeah.
that idea of someone who could push me and we'd grow into this big empire is the best word for it.
Yeah.
Um, and I changed that pretty dramatically. I realized that what I want is someone who brings peace
Well,
into my life. Peace became a huge, huge word because none of my previous relationships had peace as a
yeah.
core value.
Mhm.
But when you can get to a place of, wow, my life is so good when I'm by myself. It's actually really great. And it's peaceful and
Yeah.
it's nourishing by myself. I love cooking my own meals. I am totally happy to go take myself to a nice dinner by myself. I love going to movies by myself. I go to the
Mm.
gym by myself. I do everything by myself. Um, and I think that to add someone to that equation now, for me, became about peace. I
Mhm.
want to be in a dynamic where my nervous system actually feels settled. And
Yes.
I think that we don't have to do much to heal. Um, we have all of these methodologies, we have all of these ceremonies, and at the end of the day, what I've found to be true for myself is that we heal in direct correlation to how safe we feel.
Yes.
And when we feel safe, our nervous system relaxes. And in that relaxation, we're now able to pour love into these areas that were previously protected by the sympathetic nervous system response.
Mhm.
And to be in places that feel very safe, to be with people that feel very safe. Sure, it might require ingesting a medicine of some kind of ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever, or it might look like some sort of hypnotherapy or EMDR or whatever it might be. But oftentimes it all that's doing is adjusting our nervous system.
Mhm.
And to me, I can't think of anything more valuable than being with someone where when you're with them, you feel safer than you've ever felt. You
Yes.
feel more able to be your authentic self than you've ever felt.
Yes.
And to me, that became my number one, my key word: peace, peace, peace. And what that looked like then changed what I was seeking because I was no
Yeah.
longer seeking the type A empire builder. I was seeking the woman who wants a garden and babies
Yeah.
and is very much able to drop into her feminine and loves nourishing and nurturing me because I do the same for her in very different ways. And I think that
Yes.
that was a huge shift because um I had proven to myself, this is key because a lot of men, we as men need to feel as though we have purpose
Yeah.
and that we are making impact. And the impact that we make, even if it's just to our family, but the impact of our actions feeds us.
Mhm.
And it's how we feel powerful to see I take action, it has impact. And I had so much insecurity and doubt for so long that I needed a partner that helped me feel like I was powerful and could make impact and had when I doubted myself came in and picked up the slack and walked side by side through the fire in that way. But I've now become that person
Yeah.
embodied where I don't need someone to motivate me. I got plenty of motivation.
Right.
I
Right.
don't need someone to make sure that I'm taking big risks. I take those risks, and but I do need someone that says, "Hey, you've been working. for way too long, lay on the couch and take a nap. Watch some TV.
Yes.
Eat this thing. You haven't eaten all
Drink
day.
water.
Drink water. And so that again changed what I was seeking in relationship when I was able to have proven to myself a number of these things, because I do believe that our relationships will mirror us back to ourselves. And if we are wanting to become a version of ourselves that we aren't yet, we
Yeah.
attract partners that will move us in that direction.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. Do you believe in soulmates?
Define soulmate for me.
Well, I guess I don't know. I'm not sure if I believe in it myself. I think that I actually I don't think I think every person we meet is the right person. Like, because whether that's a temporary or long term, I think we're always meeting the right person because like you said, they're always whatever happens is meant to drive us forward to um who we're becoming, right? But I love the idea of soulmates. I don't know if there's one right person in the world, but I love the idea of it. And I was just curious what you thought about that because I know that you're spiritual and um, you talk
Yeah,
a lot
well,
about
I think
love.
that the definition is the important piece, because I believe my belief system is that, let's say that everyone has a soul on earth. So there's 8 billion people, there's 8 billion souls, but there's a level up when we travel up the dimensions back to oneness,
Ooh, yeah.
where
Yeah.
there's less and less of them. And so there's things that are called oversouls. And oversouls would be a single consciousness, let's say, that is operating as, who knows, as it could be thousands of human lives
Mhm.
simultaneously.
Mhm.
And the same way, for to give an analogy, it'd be like, okay, you are one body, but each of your fingers operates independently and you can control
Yeah.
each one differently at different times, and it can do really complex things like play guitar or piano, and then your toes. And so if each of your fingers can operate independently, but it's still being controlled by one greater consciousness, one body, that's how I think about it a bit with an oversoul, let's say. And so the definition of soulmate depends, because I could meet another human that has the same oversoul, and that will have a certain resonance. If I feel like I know you, I
Yeah.
feel as if I've known you forever.
Yeah.
And um, that oversoul, you go up above that, and there's collections of and you just go and you keep going until eventually you return back to one.
Yeah.
And so the idea of a soulmate being there is one person for you that is the most perfect fits for your whole life, that kind of also depends on what do you want for your life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I would look at it like this: if we were optimizing for joy, you would have a certain amount of people that will be the 99th percentile. Maybe that's 20 people on this earth that you could have that level of joy with. Then there'd be 100 that fit the 98th. And then there'd be, right? And you keep going down and down. And so, depending on what you're optimizing for, and depending on the level you want, like where your standard is it anyone that's a 90 and up, or is it only 99%? That will determine, I think, how many souls can work with you to make that life possible.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good perspective too. So, going back to relationships and heartbreak, what were the things that you did for yourself to move through the heartache that you went through at those times that helped you become grounded and kind of come back to yourself?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is first understanding the process that we're in after a heartbreak. Um, I have a course called The Art of Breaking Up, which is basically a 10-week program where I put this is everything I know about breakups in terms of the tools and the everything. But I think the overall mindset is most important, which is
Yeah.
from an energetic perspective. The most people, when they're moving through heartbreak, what they want is to move on. They want
Yeah.
to get over the person. Yes, there's the period where they may want the person back, but they
Mhm.
really want to move on. They want to. And so what does moving on actually entail? Moving on essentially is when you're no longer desiring that person, that relationship. There's no longer that pull of I wish this wasn't happening or I still miss that person and so the way to do that is to understand that there would say I'm Adam 1.0 and you're Ashley 1.0. And while we're in relationship, we've been magnetized to each other.
Yeah.
And once we break up, if I stay Adam 1.0 and you stay Ashley 1.0, we will still have that magnetism. But we know that Adam 1.0 and Ashley 1.0 break up. That's the path of 1.0 versions of ourselves. And so the actual way that we move on is I become Adam 2.0 and I integrate the lessons and I leave behind the baggage and I heal. And when I become Adam 2.0, that version of me is no longer attracted to Ashley 1.0. I would
Mm.
never date Ashley 1.0. And so once I've done that work, I will naturally no longer feel the pull or the call or the tether to the relationship. And I will have quote unquote moved on. And I think that that's very valuable because so a lot of people are scared to do this work because they're worried about, they don't actually really want to move on in some
Right.
ways, right?
Yeah.
And my advice to those people is listen, Adam 1.0, Ashley 1.0, it ends in breakup. We've already
Yeah.
played that game out.
Yeah.
Now, Adam 2.0, Ashley 2.0, I don't know where that goes. That
Yeah.
might have a future, but either way, whether it's you move on and go your separate directions or you do the work and you come back together, the only path to a healthy relationship is to become the 2.0 versions of ourselves anyway. As long
Mhm.
as we maintain the 1.0, which so many people do, by the way. I meet people who 5 years, 6 years later are still hung up, and it's because they have not evolved into the 2.0 version. They are
Yep.
still operating in that 1.0 consciousness.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. So, in that scenario, how do let's say, okay, that's where I'm at, where it's the breakup is there. I'm sick about it. I'm broken, and I know that okay, I have to heal and evolve, and maybe our paths will lead back together. Maybe they won't. Either way, I'll be better for it. What are the practices that I can start with
Well,
to get to that?
step 1 is you need space. This is the hardest one.
Yeah.
I find this is the most difficult one unless it's been a big blow up, infidelity or something like that, and you want nothing to do with them. But generally, the hardest thing is you got to take space, even if it's a week, because your entire worldview filters through a lens that involves them.
Mhm.
And if you're anything like me, I don't even think about eating food without thinking about if my partner might be hungry.
Right.
Right? I
Right.
don't think about what time I'm gonna wake up in the morning without thinking about if they're gonna need to wake up early or if I'm gonna that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
filter everything I do through the lens of I'm in partnership and I'm going to hold them in my awareness at all times. That's what it means for me to be devoted to someone.
Oof.
And so to now transition out of that is very hard to do
Mhm.
because we don't know how.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't actually know what that feels like. It's been who knows how long, 1 year, 10 years of not having that. And so to actually have the space to not talk, to not be around each other, to physically and digitally remove ourselves from each other's reality for a little bit of time will break the pattern.
Yep.
And I think that's the most important first step. And it can be done very lovingly and say, hey,
Yeah.
we've agreed that we're going to break up. So the step that needs to happen now is for us to have some space.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this is forever, but I'd like to request that we have 1 week of no contact. And we will set a time on the calendar to have a FaceTime call or whatever it might be. We will honor that. But between that then and now, no contact.
Wow.
And so once you've created a pattern interrupt, you start to see things differently. And when you start to see things differently, this is why I made the course, is because oftentimes we simply need the right questions to be asked and we don't know
Yeah.
what those questions are. But there's a process such as, what were the red flags that I was ignoring?
Yeah.
What were the parts of myself that I didn't like that I had become in this dynamic? What are the ways in which I want to grow? What are the lessons that I want to take into my next relationship? And by the way, that
Yeah.
can be with the same person, but the next relationship, what are those things? And we start to ask these very self-reflective questions to really take those lessons and again evolve into the 2.0, 3.0 versions of ourselves, because if we don't do that work, we will just repeat the same patterns with the next person.
Yeah. Agreed.
And once we are
Agreed.
able to see who we're becoming and the lessons that we actually have, that's when we can start to have gratitude for who we were with. And when
Yeah.
we have gratitude for the relationship that we did have, even if it ended awfully and even if it was difficult, there are lessons in there. And when we can spot them, we can shift into gratitude. And when we shift into gratitude, that's when I found we can actually start to let it go. As long as you
Yes.
hold on to anger, resentment, any of it, you're holding it in place
Uh-huh.
and keeping it tethered. It's gratitude that allows us to go, wow, okay, I can let it go now because
Yes.
I'm gonna bring that gratitude with me and let the rest drop away.
Yeah, and both exist. Both can exist. You can have, like, the anger that you feel towards that person for maybe a betrayal or, a hurt that they caused or whatever happened, while also understanding that there were good parts of them too, and both can exist, and I feel the same way. I feel like being able to embrace both parts, it is helpful in letting it go, because you don't have to see somebody as good or bad. They're not necessarily good or bad. Like, the
Yeah.
relationship was what it was, the lessons were what the lessons were. What happened has happened, and it's okay to go, okay, this person was amazing at this time in my life, and then at this time in my life there were things that happened that are no longer in alignment with who I want to be and what I want in a relationship, and that's okay.
And there's
That's
that
okay.
famous quote that says, holding on to anger is like swallowing poison and hoping your enemy dies. So the anger is doing nothing beneficial for you to hold
Yeah.
on to.
Yeah.
So while you might feel that anger initially, eventually at a certain point, if you are still holding on to anger every time you think about that person, there's more healing work to be done.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that anger is a powerful motivator, but
Yes.
it is not healthy to sustain within our systems.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Um, if you could go back to the most broken version of yourself, knowing what you know now, being who you are now, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
I think that one, I'm so grateful for the path that I've walked that I would probably just reassure myself it's all gonna be okay. It just keep feeling. I find the most dangerous place that we can get to is when we become so scared to feel that we shut down our emotions,
Yeah.
because ultimately our emotions are the gift God gives us every time we breathe.
Mm,
And so it is that emotional capacity that contains the gift of this human experience. It's the fact that I can feel so deeply that is one of my biggest superpowers that gets turned into art, and it gets turned into my ability to coach people, and it gets turned into the impact that I can create because our emotions are energy. And when
mhm.
we feel strongly about something, that is energy that we can use in very positive ways. Even the anger that we might feel towards an injustice in the world is a wonderful motivator to go and start that company or that nonprofit, or to start making content about something. There's a huge gift in all of it. And I think that continuing to remind myself and anyone who's in a deep place of heartbreak that this too shall pass, and don't close down your heart. Feel
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Feel it, feel it, feel it, and find the people and the places where you are safe to feel it, and it will pass. But you don't want to leave the other side of a heartbreak more closed.
Yeah. So good. Okay, and one last question for you before we finish up here. It's you are at the end of your life and you've lived your life to the best of your ability. What is the impact that you hope you left behind?
I hope that when I leave this planet, I have left lessons and teachings and interactions that have people able to love life more, whether that's someone that I've directly engaged with where they think back on me and they feel warmth in their heart, or whether it's a book that someone is able to pick up and it makes them feel really deeply, or it's some of my YouTube videos or teachings where someone comes across it and goes, "Wow, that really opens up my world in a really beautiful way." I'd like to think that I'm helping long after I'm gone, still helping people feel a love for life.
Yeah, that's good. And is there any way that anyone who's listening now can support you on your journey now? And whether that's, a book that you have coming out or um, a community they can join, are there ways that people can support you?
Well, I have a free offering that I tell everyone, just go get the free offering. It's called Soul Scavenger Hunt.
Hmm.
And you can find it through my website, adamroa.com, or in my Instagram bio. But essentially, that is a 90-minute quest that I've made really fun and playful and creative to help people find the clues that their soul has left them about the direction of their soul's calling. And
Mm,
that process will give people direction, which to me is the first step. If you don't know
yeah,
which direction to head, you just stay in place. And that's there can be a lot of suffering there. And
yeah,
so for anyone who's interested, I encourage them to go and download that. And even if you're not interested in that, just become part of the tribe.
yeah.
Follow me on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, sign up for my email newsletters. I'm going to be offering a lot of really cool stuff in the coming 6 months to a year, and my book very much is a big part of that, and all of my social media and my YouTube and my email newsletter will get notified when that happens.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Again, you can support Adam in a million ways, but just find him on Instagram, find him on TikTok, and I'm sure you will be able to find the resources there. But Adam, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thanks so
And
much,
I'm so glad to see you're doing so well, and I'm excited for your season of, calm to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and we'll do it again when the book's out. I would love that.
Yes, yes, I'd love that. I'd be happy to support you in that and put that out there, and let's make it work in person again one day. One day.
Absolutely, I'm sure it'll happen. I hope you have a really beautiful day, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, you too. Thank you, Adam.
Bye.